The power to save lives is the purest expression of our shared humanity. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Resuscitation, the official podcast of the Indian Resuscitation Council Federation. Join us as we explore the latest in resuscitation science, share expert insights, and provide some fantastic practical tips to enhance your life-saving skills. We have three illustrious guests on our show today. Dr. S.S.C. Chakrarao, he is the chairman of the IRCF. It was his vision that helped IRCF gain global recognition. We also have Dr. Rakesh Garg, editor-in-chief for the Indian Journal of Anesthesia and the scientific director of IRCF. He is also the lead author of IRCF CPR guidelines. Finally, we have Dr. Rasesh Diwan, director, teaching and training for the IRCF. Devyo Sanjano, ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Manshad from Cochin, and joining me is Dr. Megha Venkatesh from Bangalore as your host for this podcast. Once again, welcome to Resuscitation, the IRCF podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Mansha. I think it's right to speak to the man himself, Dr. S.S.C. Chakrarao, chairman of IRCF, regarding the council. Sir, as a primer to everything, let me begin by asking you if you could give us a brief introduction to IRCF and what was the thought process behind its formation?
I'm the former president of the Indian Society of Anesthesiologists. And because of a lot of issues that are prevailing in India, about 4,280 people are succumbed to sudden cardiac arrest for every 1 lakh population per year. These are all the preventable deaths. And in 2015, the former president of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, has succumbed to cardiac arrest when he is giving a lecture in IIM Shillong. And in 2016, there is a survey published in the Times of India that 98% of the people in India are not trained in CPR. The Indian Society of Anesthesiologists has come out and asked me to form our own Indian guidelines. So in that circumstances, in 2017, we had a meeting and formed the Indian Resuscitation Council with about 40 people from all over India. In that, a few people have come forward, like Dr. Rakesh Garg, and they have written the Indian guidelines. You may say, what is Indian guidelines? So, of course, every human being is same, but here, the Indian guidelines, there are certain peculiarities for India, because we have a vast population, we have inaccessible population, we have different languages, we have different cultures, we have different religions. So in these circumstances, we have come forward with the Indian Resuscitation Guidelines, and we have brought the training manuals and the resuscitation training centers.
Very true, sir. Glad to know our Indian Resuscitation Council was built with a strong motive and vision. But, sir, what does the future hold for IRCF? Do you foresee a future where every Indian is empowered with the knowledge of resuscitation?
Every citizen a lifesaver. Our main motto is to train everybody as a lifesaver, even though we have a very huge population, but we should also make a huge number of trainers. So for that reason, we are approaching everybody, even the people in the gyms, to train themselves and to train their people there, even the school children, even the police people, the traffic sergeants, and the truck drivers, the housewives, your neighbors, your servant waits. Everybody should be trained. When they are trained, then only you are safe. That we wanted to impress upon. And not only this, we have a lot of Zomato and Swiggy boys moving around and supplying the food. So they may be sometimes more useful. And we have to install a AED in the gyms, restaurants, playgrounds, railway stations. Of course, we have some in airports. Not only that, in bus stands, parks, and other all places where there is a accumulation of people, like in malls and all other things. So this is an AED is called a community AED, and now because of the congestion of the traffic, and even it is difficult for the ambulances to approach the victim, we are also requesting the government to use some drones to transport these AEDs. Not only that, the ambulances should be provided with a green channel and they should come and go easily. And we are advising all the flats where high-rise buildings are there, every 10 flats needs one AED and at least 2 to 3 trained personnel to save lives. So that is very important thing we wanted to impress upon the government.
Chakrarao sir, you mentioned something called an AED. Now, for our listeners who are not doctors or who are not a healthcare person, can you please tell us what an AED is?
AED is an automated external defibrillator. So, how the cardiac arrest comes? Cardiac arrest is an electrical disturbance in the heart, and heart is not able to pump the oxygenated blood to the brain properly. So, it is just in synchronization of the myocardium. So, in those circumstances, if you give a shock with this automated external defibrillator, definitely everything sets in and the heart resumes functioning properly. So this is a box type battery mechanism. It can be carried to any place.
Thank you, sir. That was very insightful. Now, the highlight for me is the importance you give for training. When it comes to training, you need two things: excellent trainers and a well equipped training center. And this question is for Dr. Rashish Diwan. So, does IRCF have any dedicated training centers?
Thank you, Dr. Mashan. Good questions you have asked. Oh, yes, there are about 132 active training centers across the country under Indian Resuscitation Council Federation in today's time. And these are known as a CRTC, the Comprehensive Resuscitation Training Centers. And these centers are aligned with the Indian Resuscitation Council Federation guidelines and the courses, and every CRTC will have a CRTC coordinator who works under the guidance of the national core members and the directors and the chairman from Indian Resuscitation Council Federation. Basically, the center conducts three provider courses. They are COLS, BCLS, and CCLS. COLS is basically compression only life support designed for every citizen of the country for sudden cardiac arrest happening outside the healthcare premises, where it can happen anytime, any place in the country. While BCLS is a basic cardiopulmonary life support course, is a true CPR algorithm which is taught for cardiac arrest victims, whether it is outside the hospital or inside the hospital. The BCLS course is basically designed for every doctor and every paramedics, and also we cover the technicians and sports coaches and gym trainers who are certified and have some knowledge of anatomy and physiology. While the third provider course is a comprehensive cardiopulmonary life support, which is designed for in-house either cardiac arrest or pre-arrest conditions, and it is for all the doctors and all the paramedics working in critical areas like ICUs, emergency department, operation theaters, cath labs, dialysis room, any invasive procedure rooms, etc., etc. And this is mainly for teaching pre-arrest conditions within the hospital, along with BCLS for cardiac arrest victims. Over and above this, IRCF National Headquarters also carries out training of trainers programs and instructor courses for BCLS and CC.
That's interesting, isn't it? A lot of numbers there. More than 130 CRTC centers. That's phenomenal. As a follow up to that, how does an institution, let's say a medical college, become a CRTC center? What are the basic infrastructural requirements?
Any medical college or a dental college or a nursing college can have a CRTC. Any hospital, any city branch of various associations, any NGO or any academic skill lab or organization involved with healthcare activities can become a CRTC. There are specifications for the infrastructure which the IRCF guides to every place where they want to create the CRTC. And there should be adequate classroom space and skill training space, table spaces, floor spaces, with good air-conditioned ambience is required. We provide a list of teaching mannequins and equipments for precise hands-on training, and those are to be acquired by any CRTC. The infrastructure also requires good audiovisual facility, catering services, space for serving those things, office space for working with an office assistant and with the support with the equipments, printers, internet. All this infrastructure is absolutely mandatory for creating a CRTC with any organization or NGO.
Okay. Dr. Rakesh Garg, sir, speaking to all of you so far, it already sounds like IRCF and the training centers was a meticulously well-structured educational initiative. Sir, if I may ask you, can you give us a brief picture about the progress IRCF has made so far with respect to training?
Thank you, Megha, for taking it forward. As we discussed in the beginning also, that there is an definite need of teaching and training of resuscitation across all the cadres, whether we talk about the healthcare workers, including the medics and paramedics, and also we are a little concerned about teaching and training of the layperson. And this is what the IRCF has taken this initiative to have the guidelines across all the three cadres. Because when we talk about resuscitation, until somebody has initiated it appropriately and timely in the field, and that will be most of the time by the layperson, it will not bring us good outcome. And that's the reason IRCF has dedicatedly formulated and released guidelines, which is very suitable for layperson CPR, which has been nomenclated as compression-only life support calls, and it has become a buzzword. And similarly, the medicos who are working outside the hospital or in the limited resources, they have to provide the basic resuscitation. And that's why we have basic cardiopulmonary life support guidelines in those structural infrastructural arena, maybe outside the hospital or limited resources. And similarly, when we have in-hospital situations, we have to provide a comprehensive care because it takes some time for all the gadgets and expertise to come up. And that's why we have given something called as comprehensive cardiopulmonary life support, which is a combination of basic and advanced both. Because in hospital, we cannot separate them. We are expected to provide a comprehensive care. And that is why for the first time in the world, actually, we have provided a single guideline in the form of a comprehensive cardiopulmonary life support so that any resuscitation required inside the hospital can be provided comprehensively, starting from basic aspects and in continuum, taking it to the advanced one in a comprehensive way. And this is what IRCF has taken a lead, which has been very well appreciated among those people who are keen to learn CPR and also who are keen for scrutinizing the various activities of CPR, and they have acknowledged and appreciated that this is need for the day. And IRCF has taken it forward, as Dr. Rashesh Diwan was just mentioning, starting the journey almost around 8 years back from a team of people making the guidelines and then disseminating it across the India through various resuscitation centers labeled as Comprehensive Resuscitation Training Center, CRTC. We are successfully able to provide teaching training across all the cadres.
That is quite an achievement, sir. Congratulations on that. Also, sir, we have heard about World Restart a Heart Day. Can you enlighten our listeners more about this? What has been IRCF's role in it so far?
Absolutely, Megha, you have pointed out an important aspect. Though we would say that the resuscitation teaching and training should go across the year, but sometimes we have to, just to sensitize people, we have to celebrate a day, maybe a week, maybe a month. And that's what the ILCOR has taken the initiative of World Restart a Heart Day. And IRCF is an active member. Until date, it has been contributing maximum training across the world for teaching training of layperson. When I say teaching and training of layperson for CPR, we need to understand that majority of cardiac arrest, almost 80 to 85% of cardiac arrest, would happen outside the hospital. And these would happen in situations wherein patient may be walking in the park, maybe at the home or working, and they suddenly gets in cardiac arrest. In that situation, what do you think? Who is the best person to do the CPR? Probably, if we think, let's call for the ambulance and bring that patient to the hospital and do CPR, I think it's too late, because the resuscitation science has already confirmed that if we delay the resuscitation by 1 minute, the chances of survival decreases by 7 to 10%. And we all will accept it, that it will take couple of minutes for any patient to be lifted from outside the hospital and brought to the emergency. Now, this gap has to be filled by somebody. And this is where the role of layperson. And layperson is the person who will be in the vicinity of this cardiac arrested victim, isn't it? And that's why we have to train them. And probably teaching and training the layperson is probably a bridge gap to remain this patient as a patient with perfusing organs, so that he does not get an hypoxic injury. And this is what we start with layperson CPR, and this is what we start as a member of ILCOR, basically the ILCOR, as World Restart a Heart Day. This is just not for sensitizing the people that they should learn the importance, and that's why we celebrate is that as a day. But IRCF firmly believes that this day should be extended to a week, a month, and a year, and whole year people should learn CPR. And it becomes sometimes, Megha, we become a little philosophical or spiritual, isn't it? We say that if we have come into this world, if somebody has given us a life, can't we give a life to somebody who is dying, who is having a cardiac arrest? And this is what the IRCF believes. Let's at least teach one person in each family a CPR, a calls, so that he can save at least a person.
Very well said, sir. Well, now we know that CPR registry was a conscious effort that was conjured with a vision to be pioneer in teaching and training related to CPR. Sir, but where can one get access to all the details regarding the training courses, upcoming batches, etc.?
I think, as I said, that we have to teach and train, and Dr. Rashesh Diwan mentioned that we have many centers which has been labeled as CRTC across India. We have a dedicated website of the Indian Resuscitation Council Federation, which is www.cprindia.in. Now, this is a site which is having multiple faces. One, a public face in which everybody can see what these guidelines are, which centers are, which instructors are. And on these guidelines, those who are willing to open the centers, with the permission, they can be given login credentials when their center is accredited as CRTC, and they can see all more details about conducting the courses. So this is the information that we are providing through our web portal, where all information is related to the teaching, training, the courses, the batches, which has been nicely elaborated by Dr. Rashesh Diwan earlier, so that people can learn and teach it. And simultaneously, you also touched about a term called CPR registry. So while we were preparing the CPR guidelines, and when we prepare a guidelines, it has to be specific and focused to the area that it gathers. And when we say focused to a particular area, particular geographical area, demographic of that area, we need to have guidelines which is suited to that population. And that is the reason we have our guidelines of IRCF. We already have many other resuscitation councils. Their guidelines are also there. They are good guidelines, but they may not be suitable for our population, Indian population, Asian population. And we need data for this. And those who formulate guidelines, who formulate science, they understand it very well, that when we want to formulate guidelines, we need to have data from our own population for which these guidelines are being made. And this is the reason that IRCF has taken an initiative again to formulate CPR registry, and which is on the way. I'm sure it will be coming very soon. And on this pretext, we have already started the journal. So I will urge strongly that we need to do more research to collect those data from our population and publish it so that we can more individualize our guidelines to the need of our population and as per our population. So this is what is future vision of IRCF now, to have CPR registry also. And I'm sure this is going to be a huge help to individualized, or you can say personalize the guidelines, which will be very well suited for Indian population in the coming times.
So just to reiterate to our listeners, the website mentioned was www.cprindia.in. We hope our listeners get the right access to information henceforth and avail the best training possible in CPR.
I must say, Megha, I am so relieved. And you know why? One of the things that terrifies me whenever I go to a gym, and it's probably because whenever you open social media, you see people in some random gym just collapsing. But it's such a relief to know IRCF is training people in resuscitation. And it is such a relief for me, and it should be for all of us. And when you talk about resuscitation, I have these vivid memories from my internship days. In fact, I became very cynical about these things. Does it really work? Now, fast forward to my anesthesia PG days, and I saw that a properly given CPR, you can actually save lives. And that's a beautiful thing. Everybody will have these unforgettable memories. Perhaps everyone on the guest panel can share some of their CPR stories as well, if I may call it that, because each of these lives that you save has a story.
Absolutely, Manshad, because when we take something forward, it has stories which are good and which may not be so good. Regarding the CPR, I will not say that seeing a victim of a cardiac arrest and is not able to survive, we feels bad, and we have seen many situations earlier where the patient has collapsed somewhere. I'm sure that each one of you have seen it. I have already seen in my life also, sometimes a patient gets in cardiac arrest and we realize that these patients comes quite late into the hospital and they finally could not be saved. On the other side, a reassuring story also comes up, and we have been teaching CPR on various platforms. We have been teaching on the ground staff of the airport, and we have been teaching in the schools to kids, schools and teachers. So many of the stories which comes in media, and you all have seen also, that we are getting a good success stories from airlines, from the airports, that people are being saved by the layperson. I think this is really a moment of, I will not say happiness, but a moment of satisfaction that teaching and training to these persons are saving life to somebody. And when I go to school, the enthusiasm that we say is really, really encouraging. I remember in one of the program years back, my daughter was just 5 years at that moment of time. And I was taking to her, and the mannequin was just kept into my office at my workplace. And I was just talking to somebody, entered my office, and I said that my daughter was doing CPR on that mannequin. I've never taught her, but she has seen multiple times teaching others. And I was really surprised that she was doing a good CPR. I think these kids are the ambassadors for us, and we have to take it in a very big way to teach them, because these are our futures, and we have to teach CPR to them in their formative years, so that we are sure that for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 decades, there is a trained person in our community who will be helping our community.
Chakrarao sir, can you please share some of your stories?
Thank you, Dr. Manshad and Dr. Megha. Actually, regarding the experiences with these cardiac arrest victims, we are hearing a lot of successful resuscitations after we started these programs. So we have to start something like a club or a meeting of the different victims, survival of the victims, and the people who have made them survive. So on this, At least I have a plan to conduct at least a Zoom meeting for all of them and exchange their views and their suggestions for improving our cardiac CPR program. Whenever there is a news of recovery after a sudden cardiac, we are trying to contact them immediately. To contact both the victim and the people who have recovered and trying to honor them very often. This is frequently happening, and we are very happy that a good number of people were saved after the CPR, and we are absolutely happy to go with this program. Thank you very much.
Rakesh sir, can you share some of your stories?
Thank you, Mansha. First, I would like to say the history of training because I am involved more with the training of the trainers. And let me tell you, when we talk and teach the skills of high performance CPR on all the micro details of those things, talking to different specialties of our fraternity, maybe physicians, maybe anesthesiologists, and all other kind of specialists, they get so surprised and stunned that they've never imagined and they've never ever learned that a compression can be of such a more detailed skill. Teaching them for 5-6 hours the basic cardiopulmonary life support, it is so satisfying that teaching since 2018 is boosting up myself a lot to train more and more people, to make more and more trainers so that they give a high quality training also for the high quality performance of CPR, because that is one which is going to save the lives in our country. And it is very, very important that we stick to the high quality training. So that is the first thing I wanted to express about. About the experience of CPR, there are a couple of cases I remember in emergency department and in ICUs where I exactly endorse and confirm and agree with what Dr. Rakesh Garg said about the experience. It is so satisfying that you have pursued high quality CPR and done everything with the medications and shocks and everything. When somebody is survived, it gives a tremendous satisfaction, which you never ever forget for your life. Even you retire and you become old and leave your clinical practice. That's what is happening with me right now.
We thank all of you for joining in today and adding value to our very first podcast and giving it a great kickstart. Looking forward to more such interesting and informative episodes in future. More so the next one, joined by an international speaker. Stay tuned for more updates and subscribe to our channel on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you.